All right. Welcome to the CACFP updates portion of the training for family daycare home sponsors. This training is presented by ODE Child Nutrition Programs, also known as ODE CNP. Eliza and I will be presenting this CACFP update training today, and we will begin with just some quick introductions. So my name is Shannon Smith, and I am a child nutrition specialist here on our community team. Pass it over to Eliza.
Morning, everyone. My name is Eliza Kondo. I am also a child nutrition specialist here on the community team.
All right, so in this training, we will go over learning objectives, USDA Food and Nutrition Services updates, ODE CNP updates, and resources both new and old that will be helpful in implementing your CACFP operations. Required sponsor actions are highlighted in this webinar. At the end of this training, we hope that you will take away these two objectives. First, that you will understand all CACFP requirements and updates that have gone into effect this past year, and that you will know what new resources are available and where to find them. We will start with the USDA updates. So USDA has provided us with quite a few updates in this past year. For this training, we're only going to look back for about the last year to catch up on important CACFP news since our last CACFP annual training. In this time, USDA has provided us with guidance on the end of the public health emergency and the end of the Keep Kids Fed Act. A new child nutrition program integrity rule has come out. USDA has provided Oregon with guidance on federal requirements related to the Child Nutrition Equal Opportunity Public Notification, and several memos related to the meal pattern were also released, including ones on feeding infants, milk supply shortages, crediting traditional indigenous foods, and crediting tofu and soy yogurt. Let's start with the end of the public health emergency for COVID on May 11th, 2023. There's no action that sponsors need to take here, but it's just a quick notification in case you were not aware. As a result of the end of the public health emergency, the Keep Kids Fed Act also ended on June 30th, 2023. The act had a number of provisions for child nutrition programs and for family daycare homes. The main ones for CACFP included the Tier 1 reimbursements for all providers and a bonus of 10 cents per meal served to participants. After June 30th, 2023, tiering rates returned to the original Tier 1 and Tier 2 rates, and the additional 10 cents went away. New 2023 to 2024 CACFP reimbursement rates were released July 1st, 2023, and ultimately resulted in rates that were very similar for Tier 1 providers and returning to a lower reimbursement rate for the Tier 2 providers. In August 2023, USDA released the initial implementation memo on the Child Nutrition Program Integrity Final Rule. ODE released this to sponsors a few days later. Then in November of 2023, USDA released an updated table of regulations with more explanations on each of the integrity rule changes. There were regulations that affected school nutrition programs, CACFP, and the summer food programs. However, we're only going to focus on the ones that affect all sponsors today. Which is the financial review of sponsoring organizations in the CACFP. This new rule will require that all state agencies, like Oregon, annually review sponsors' financial management of their CACFP nonprofit food service account. This will be a similar process to the financial review of documents completed by ODE during an administrative review. As of spring of 2024, ODE CNP is still developing our procedure for our state. USDA requires that states have procedures in place by August 23rd, 2024. Our office will provide more information to sponsors before this is implemented, and there is no action that sponsors have to take at this time. There were also a few previously implemented provisions for family daycare home sponsors in this final rule. which includes allowing Tier 2 daycare homes to assist in collecting applications from households, although it maintains that daycare homes may not review the collected applications, and it protects the privacy of household income information. Another provision includes the simplified calculation of monthly administrative reimbursements, and the final provision includes the allowance of carryover funds. All of these have already been implemented for quite a while now, all of them actually for over a decade, but it's finally now being codified in the regulations. Next, we have our Child Nutrition Equal Opportunity Public Notification Policy Memo. This was released at the end of September 2023 and was the result of a management evaluation finding from USDA. It included a requirement to post the non-discrimination statement, which is something that we have asked sponsors to do for a while now, and it also included a new requirement. USDA required that ODE and CACFP sponsors notify families of the availability of free language assistance for applicants with limited English proficiency, also known as LEP, and also to notify families of the availability of free accommodations for participants with disabilities. The September memo notified all sponsors that notification to the public is required and can be completed by including a statement on program web pages, enrollment information, or program communications such as newsletters or online postings. This statement can combine the availability of the free language assistance and the free disability accommodations. The notification must be provided by sponsors at least once per year. Getting into our meal pattern memos, USDA released CACFP Memo 11-2023 on September 20th, 2023 on feeding infants. This memo included updated guidance on breast milk storage recommendations, infant formula food safety considerations, crediting grain and ounce equivalents for infants, and clarification on combination food crediting. For breast milk, safe storage of expressed breast milk was extended to 4 days from the previous 3 days. And for formula, the new memo included additional guidance on safe handling, including a reminder to always use safe water sources, using prepared formula within 2 hours of preparation, refrigerating formula that's not used right away, and using it within 24 hours. Once feeding begins, using the formula within 1 hour or throwing it away, and checking best by dates and packaging to make sure it's not damaged, as well as safe storage in a cool, dry, indoor location. This same memo has information on updated crediting to grains. Like the child and adult meal pattern, grains for infants must be credited using ounce equivalent serving sizes. USDA has created a Feeding Infants Using Ounce Equivalents for Grains handout. The link to this handout is available from the ODE, CNP, CACFP meal pattern page, and it includes tables that show 0 to 1/2 ounce equivalents of iron fortified infant cereal portion sizes for breakfast, lunch, and supper. And it has tables of portion sizes ranging from 1/4 ounce to 1/2 ounce equivalents depending on the items served. As a reminder, the range in serving sizes is meant to include infants who are not yet developmentally ready for solid foods. Infants not ready for solid foods will require the bottom range of 0 ounce equivalents, and infants who are developmentally ready and consistently eating solid foods must be fed the higher end of the serving size at 1/2 ounce equivalents. ODE CMP previously updated the infant meal pattern chart when ounce equivalents became required in 2021, and sponsors can use the infant meal pattern chart, which is also available from the ODE CNP CACFP meal pattern page as a reference. Finally, in the updated Feeding Infants memo, combination food crediting guidance was clarified to state that combination baby foods served must meet the full required amount of the meal component. This is because combination foods should only be offered after the infant has been introduced to the individual ingredients in the combination food. And since these are all foods that are accepted by the infant, then the full required amount must be served. Again, when we say the full required amount, this would be the upper range for the serving size provided for developmentally ready infants. Because combination foods must meet the upper range of the serving size requirements, infant combination foods will need supporting documentation as well, like all combination foods. Some infant combination foods have crediting statements on their labels, but if they don't have this, a product formulation statement, child nutrition label, or recipe for homemade items must be on file. Now let's move to our milk supply shortage memos. USDA released a memo on October 25th, 2023, clarifying that states can provide flexibilities to sponsors who are experiencing milk supply shortages, and that this is allowed in the regulations under 7 CFR 225.16 F6. This was in response to nationwide shortages of milk due to packaging supply disruptions. On October 31st, 2023, ODE then released a memo letting sponsors know that if you are affected by this milk supply shortage, you must notify us via the milk supply shortage form to request this flexibility. The form includes information on programs affected, duration of the disruption, and current milk supply status. The link to the form is available through the memo, which you can find on our ODE CMP memos page. We do not anticipate that providers will have an issue with milk supply shortages since the packaging issues seem to mostly be for vendors who service institutional buyers, but family daycare home sponsors should be aware of this potential flexibility that is available with state approval. Sponsors and providers must retain documentation that supports the specific challenges in receiving milk, and the sponsor must submit the milk supply shortage form in order to receive this flexibility. Moving on to crediting traditional indigenous foods, USDA released a new technical assistance memo in November and re-released a revised version of their 2016 memo on procuring local meat, poultry, game, and eggs. Both of these memos included only minor updates from previous versions and mostly expanded the list of credited foods, which now include beaked hazelnut, lamb's quarter, which is a dark leafy green, red salmon, and more. This is a helpful tool for sponsors and providers who serve an indigenous population. One thing that the memo updated is having an increased focus on following state, local, and tribal inspection requirements with any purchased, cultivated, and wild game. The revised CACFP 1-2016 memo includes a series of detailed questions and answers related to procurement and inspection requirements for meats, poultry, seafood, game, and eggs. These two memos do not have any major changes to crediting. Instead, it focused mostly on technical assistance. The last USDA memo is CACFP 2-2024 on tofu and soy yogurt. This is an update of an older memo, CACFP 21-2016. The main difference between the two memos is that tofu and soy yogurt are now allowed to be served as a creditable food item in the infant meal pattern as well. Previously, tofu and soy yogurt were not allowed to be served as part of a creditable meal for infants. Now that it is allowed, the minimum serving size for developmentally ready infants ages 6 to 11 months is 0 to 4 tablespoons, or 1/4 cup or 2.2 ounces of creditable tofu. Credible tofu is tofu meeting the protein requirement of 5 grams of protein per 2.2 ounces by weight. This protein requirement is usually only met by firm or extra firm tofu. Soy yogurt's minimum serving size is 0 to 4 ounces or 1/2 cup of creditable yogurt. Creditable yogurt is yogurt that meets the sugar limit requirement of no more than 23 grams of sugar per 6 ounces of yogurt. As a reminder, the range starts from 0 because infants may not be developmentally ready for solid foods right at 6 months, but once the infant is consistently eating solid foods, the upper end of the range will be required as the serving size. Sponsors with any questions about these USDA memos or regulations are encouraged to reach out to their child nutrition specialist. I am now going to send this over to Eliza, who will go over the ODE CNP updates.
Thanks, Shannon. So for ODE CMP, we had several updates from this year. This included site monitoring flexibility, CACFP administrative review procedures updates, CACFP carryover funds, revised family daycare home provider agreements, and incorporated providers and questions and answers. So ODE released our site monitoring flexibility memo in October 30th, 2023. This memo will also apply to family daycare home sponsors. So if a provider is operating less than 9 months a year, the sponsor can conduct less than 3 site monitoring reviews a year for that provider. Providers who operate 0 to 4 months out of the year must be reviewed at least once. Providers who operate 5 to 8 months of the year must be reviewed twice, and providers who operate 9 to 12 months of the year must be reviewed the regular 3 times. To have at least one unannounced review with a meal observation is still there, so sponsors with providers operating up to 8 months must make sure that their reviews include an unannounced review and a meal observation. If there are major findings or serious deficiencies, additional follow-up reviews are still required for those providers. The second ODE memo was released November 16th, 2023, and this included a lot of changes on how ODE CMP is conducting our administrative reviews this year. Changes that are relevant to family daycare home sponsors include changes to underclaims found during a review, changes to verification of previous corrective action implementation, changes to exit conferences, and changes to the appeal procedure. And we'll go through each of those changes next. We'll start with underclaims. And so what are underclaims? Underclaims are errors that are found during a review that would result in an increase in reimbursement for the sponsor. So for example, if you claimed 400 meals when it should be 410 meals, in the past, ODE paid out that extra 10 meals. However, USDA has notified us that this is actually not in line with regulation. Therefore, effective starting this year, ODE CMP will not be paying out for underclaims anymore. If this error is found prior to the 60-day claim deadline, sponsors can adjust their claim. So for example, if the review is in March and this error was from January, it's still within that 60-day claim deadline and can be updated. If, however, the review is in March and the error was from November, it's past that 60-day claim deadline, and the only way to receive that underclaim is to use a one-time exception if you still have it available. Just remember that that one-time exception is only available every 36 months, so we recommend that you use that wisely. Now we have the verification of previous corrective action implementation. While ODE CMP has always reviewed previous sponsor corrective actions, it hasn't always been formally documented. So starting this year, ODE CMP will have specific questions on our review tool related to previous corrective actions and whether the sponsor is still implementing their corrective action plan. This is why it's important for sponsors to keep their policies and procedures current and up to date. ODE CMP verifies all observed practices against the written policies and procedures that sponsors have and ensure that it meets CACFP requirements. You may have updated your procedures since the last time we were out on review, and that's okay, but you'll need to make sure that you have those updates in writing as well. This helps with training your staff and ensuring that the correct practices are followed. And then at the end of the review, ODE CMP conducts an exit conference to go over our report, if there are any findings, and go over any corrective actions or timelines. As of this year, we are providing more flexibility by conducting that exit conference via a virtual meeting within 10 calendar days of the active review period. This often allows for more sponsor representatives to be present and can be scheduled for a time that's more convenient for all parties. In situations where the review is completed by both your team and the ODE CMP specialist has time to complete an exit conference on site, this is still allowed as well. And then during the exit conference, if there are any fiscal findings, the appeal period will be issued at this time. This will help prevent unnecessary delays in the review timeline. All other procedures related to the appeal process will remain the same, and sponsors will still have 15 calendar days to request an appeal. Next, we have our carryover CACFP funds memo released in late November 2023. This memo includes steps for all family daycare home sponsors to take, which every sponsor has completed already, so great job. These steps are updated due to the USDA final rule released last August. It requires sponsors to review all administrative expenditures entered into CMP Web and verify all information was accurate. If there were errors, sponsors need to revise their CMP Web claims and resubmit them for ODE approval. Then the next step, which was new, was to submit a report from the financial management system and identify the amount of unspent CACFP reimbursement earned in the previous fiscal year. This helped ODE CMP to verify that the carryover amount was accurate. Finally, after that, the approved carryover funds can be applied to this year's administrative expenses. All expenses should be expended in a first in, first out method, so these carryover funds should be used first. We also had some revised agreements that came out. This memo came out February 22nd, 2024, and the updated agreements with revised rights and responsibilities and updated civil rights statements. Make sure that for Spanish and Vietnamese versions, you are using the versions that Megan sent out March 12th, 2024. These agreements are all updated on the CACFP resources page. And this area will have some ongoing required sponsor action. All new providers needed to be signed up using this revised agreement as of March 15th, 2024. And if you do not have updated agreements with all your current providers just yet, make sure that that is done by June 30th of 2024. Finally, we have our incorporated providers memo that was sent out just one day after, on February 23rd, 2024. This is in regards to providers who work for business owners. The memo is informational and covers topics such as who and what should be communicated in these situations, how substitutes and other employees should be handled, how claim submissions must be managed, and some common questions and answers related to this topic. If you do work with a lot of incorporated providers or are starting to work with a few, please review this memo and make sure you're familiar with all of the requirements. All right, now that you know what's new in regulations and requirements over the past year, let's move on to resources. First, we'll go over some new resources that USDA has come out this past year. This is not an all-inclusive list. These are, however, just helpful resources that may be helpful for any sponsor. USDA has been expanding their library of Spanish language resources, and there's now a Spanish version of the CACFP crediting handbook. There's also a Spanish version of all the crediting and child nutrition tip sheets, and these are helpful tools for staff who may be more comfortable in learning with Spanish language resources. USDA has also made multiple great resources for meal pattern, including cooking videos. These are short videos that teach you how to create a credible recipe. They've created meal pattern training slides, and these may be helpful if you're training your team, and these are also available in Spanish. And there's a 45-minute webinar that goes over how to navigate the food buying guide calculator. The food buying guide calculator is a helpful tool for crediting sponsor-made recipes, but it can be complicated if you've never used it before. So this webinar will walk you through the process and explains how to use it effectively. On the ODE CMP side, we have a few new resources for you. We have the new financial management procedure template for family daycare home sponsors, a new annual CACFP sponsor calendar, and a creditable infant formula handout. And all the ODE CMP resources will be available on our CACFP page, and Shirley will go ahead and post that into the chat. And we have gone over the financial management procedure template in our previous training already, so this is going to just be a quick encouragement for sponsors to use this template if you are updating your financial management procedure. The question and answer format is due to the restrictions of the PDF formatting, so if it does not work for your organization to use this format, you're welcome to make your own. And in that case, this template just may be helpful for a guide of what to include. This is not a required template to be used at this time, as Megan mentioned earlier, but we highly encourage you to take a look at it at the very, very least. We also have our creditable infant formula handout. We get quite a few questions on what makes up a creditable infant formula each year, and we imagine that you have a lot of providers who have the same question. These resources provide a one-page summary of creditable infant formula requirements and some common questions that we get asked. It goes over the definition of FDA regulated and iron fortified as well, and this is just a good resource to have on hand for your monitoring reviews. And finally, we also have our annual CACFP sponsor calendar. This is a semi-new resource. We have provided sponsors with a year-round calendar in the past, and we are bringing it back again. So this calendar provides important dates and recommended tasks for each month of the fiscal year. We recommend that all sponsors check out this resource to track important due dates throughout the year. Since we don't have exact dates for all tasks at the beginning of the fiscal year, our office will update the calendar periodically as new dates or information becomes available. Updates will also be shared through the CACFP Knowing and Growing newsletter. And speaking of the newsletter, all named of individuals with emails listed in your CMP web applications, these are your responsible principals for CACFP, will get the newsletter in their mailbox each month. The CACFP newsletter is sent out the first week of every month. If you're not receiving this in your inbox, make sure you're checking your junk or your spam inbox to see if it's going there. And if you're still not getting it, sign up again for the newsletter. If you need the link to it, you can go to any of the CACFP newsletters on the memo page, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you can find the link to sign up. All sponsors are responsible for knowing the information provided in the newsletter, and the newsletter will provide a list of all memos that were released by USDA and ODE in the previous months, and for important memos, there will be an article summarizing the impact on sponsors. ODE CMP can use these also uses these newsletters to provide important information on due dates, available trainings, and grants, and other important things happening in our world of CACFP. Besides the newsletter, ODE CMP CACFP's subpages are always a good place to find resources. Our training page includes links and summaries of all current video trainings that we have produced for CACFP. Our meal pattern page includes many handouts that can be used and has helpful training tools for your kitchen and menu staff. And the CACFP resources page, also known as the forms, documents, handbooks, and manuals page, has recently been moved to the main page. So now you can find all other resources right on the main page for CACFP. If you are having any trouble finding any resources, just reach out to your assigned child nutrition specialist and they'll be able to direct you in the right place. We also wanted to highlight a few more resources that are not new, but are good resources to know about from the Institute of Child Nutrition, also known as ICN. Their website at theicn.org includes the entire child nutrition recipe box, which has many credited recipes for CACFP. ICN also provides free in-person trainings on a multitude of CACFP topics, and will fly out a trainer out to your location if you can guarantee that you'll have at least 25 participants. If a live training doesn't work for you, you can also take part in their many live webinars they have throughout the year or take an online training through their virtual training platform. Besides trainings, they also have monthly newsletters called the Monthly Mealtime Memos with recipe ideas, tips on food safety, and more information related to the CACFP. The ICN's website contains a lot of helpful information, so we encourage all sponsors to take a look. ODE CMP is continuing to work on new resources for all of our sponsors. We do have a family daycare home manual revision that is slated to come out later this year, so keep an eye out for that. And then we are also going to be receiving $660,000 in Oregon state funds for a startup and expansion grant for CACFP family daycare home sponsoring organizations. Many of you already know about this grant, and we are happy to report that it has passed as a part of Senate Bill 5701 under Section 254. It's currently making its way through the internal rulemaking process. In our request, we asked for $120,000 for new family daycare home sponsors and $50,000 for current family daycare home sponsors for each fiscal year after. We hope to provide more information to all of you on timelines and application requirements as we get more information, but we're all really, really excited about this development. At ODE, we're always looking for and working on something new. So if there's lots more to come throughout this year for resources. If you do have any other resources that you would like to have or would like to see, please let your assigned child nutrition specialist know. We're always looking for new ideas. And that sums up our CACFP updates. So I'm going to pause here for any questions either on the updates that we did, or if you were able to stew a little bit more on the financial management presentation earlier. If you have questions from there, feel free to pop in and ask. All right, I'm not seeing any in the chat or hearing any. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. Just really quickly before we end our session, another short message from the Oregon Department of Education. ODE supports equity and excellence for every learner and seeks to work with school districts, education service districts, and community partners like you. We believe all children should have access to high quality, well-rounded learning experience, and this institution is an equal opportunity provider. Thank you for sitting through the CACFP updates training. I know it's been a long one. If I pause here and I'll hand it back to Shirley too. If you don't have other questions for us now, just make sure you reach out to your assigned child nutrition specialist.